What I want to say about Charlie is that he and I had numerous disagreements. I'm a woman who's married to a woman. And despite that, he invited me on his podcast. He had me speak at his Turning Point event. He platformed me. He retweeted me. This is a guy that was willing to engage in debate to resolve disagreements. And the fact that I am seeing celebration, and I'm not going to point fingers. I'm not going to make this about any red, blue. I don't want to be divisive here, but this is disgusting. I got a tweet from my daughter today. I'm not thinking clearly. I got a text from my daughter today telling me that kids at her school were celebrating. Okay, at my daughter's high school. Something is wrong in this country. The divisiveness, the rhetoric, the othering has got to stop now.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So I wanted to talk about the events of yesterday. I was filming a video about Irina Zarusky and got a text message in the middle of filming telling me that Charlie Kirk has been shot. Obviously, you hear things all the time via X or wherever. So I had to, there were no reports. Well, I eventually found New York Post. New York Post, from what I found, seemed to be the first to officially report on it. And it was a video of Charlie throwing hats to the crowd. That was one of the last videos he posted. He was throwing hats to the crowd. The crowd seemed to be, welcoming him, happy he was there. Just another event that he's become so well known for. And then moments later, absolute carnage. Just moments later. What's interesting, I was literally reacting to CNN's appalling, disgusting segment they did, where they were trying to downplay the severity of what happened to, well, they weren't trying to downplay her death, I would say, but they were trying to downplay the discrepancies in the response that Charlie pointed out. He called the mainstream media out for their hypocrisy. And CNN, they couldn't handle it.
When you are mentally ill, you have a hard time knowing that you are mentally ill. But also, people like Charlie Kirk, they've been looking for opportunities to make this some sort of reciprocal George Floyd situation. And that's the part that I think he's almost giving away the game. And it's sad to see a lot of people going along with it.
Let me just say a couple of things. One is, what happened to that young woman was horrible. And it's everybody's nightmare. If you're in any public space, a subway, whatever, that something bad is going to happen to you or somebody you care about. So it does strike a chord. We don't know why that man did what he did. And for Charlie Kirk to say, we know he did it because she's white, when there's no evidence of that, it's just pure race mongering, hate mongering. It's wrong. Then he says that if something like that had happened the other way, there would be sweeping changes imposed on society. Where is the George Floyd Policing Act? It didn't pass. Even when you had a white police officer murder a black man on live television, the whole world saw, there were no sweeping changes. In fact, not one law was passed at the federal level.
He called you a race monger, said you're the only one that brought up race. What do you say to Van Jones?
Well, first of all, as you aptly noted, that in the video, it's pretty clear that the attacker said, quote, that white girl. Secondly, Van Jones, he puts race in almost every situation where it doesn't exist. For example, with the death of George Floyd, Van Jones repeatedly said that it was a racist attack. You know who didn't say that? Keith Ellison, who is the Attorney General of Minnesota at the time, said that race did not play any role in the actions that happened with George Floyd's death. But even beyond that, and I think this is what's very important, is that we are living in a mental model and a framing post-2020. The 2020 model is that the worst thing that could possibly happen is racial attacks. Remember, even before that, Jussie Smollett or the FBI being mobilized for even the slightest whisper of a hate crime. But now, all of a sudden, when we make the left live up to their own standard of rules, there is complete silence by the entire American media. And then Van Jones goes on television and calls me a race hustler for even calling out the facts and the specifics around this case.
And in my opinion, they put a target on his back. But that's what the mainstream media have been doing for the longest time, putting a target on all of our backs. He's going out, doing these outdoor events, completely open. All he wanted to do was have a discussion with people. And even college students who didn't agree with him, they still appreciated him. They came to his events. They enjoyed debating with him. That's all. And someone felt fit to take his life. And I'm also hearing that, I don't know if this is true, but it's been reported that his family accompanied him to the event. So, of course, as well as the mainstream media not acknowledging, I mean, they're so concerned about the rhetoric of the right. They're so concerned about that. They're conditioning people to think that anything the right says that's critical of them is rhetoric that can result in violence. They're so concerned about that. They have no ability to acknowledge their part to play in what has resulted in violence against President Trump, pro-life organizations, pro-life Supreme Court justices, pregnancy centers. All of these things have been going on for a long time now. And all the mainstream media does is deflect. No accountability. They don't apply the same standard that they apply to the right to themselves. Of course not. And then even now, they're using the death of Charlie Kirk to point fingers at Trump and Republicans. And once again, rhetoric. They're trying to push that. Oh, what does this mean? Is this going to be used?
And as Tony mentioned, not everyone took to his words or his rhetoric. At times, they were offensive to specific communities. But with that said, this is not the time to focus on that. We are focused on this tragedy. Speaking of this tragedy, is this a moment for your party to reflect on political violence? Is it a moment for us to think about the responsibility of our political leaders and their voices and what it does to the masses as they get lost in misinformation or disinformation that turns in and spills into political violence?
I say both parties,
Because as we were just talking about a moment ago with Alan, after one of the Doge employees was allegedly attacked in Washington, D.C., that's what Donald Trump used as justification to send in federal troops into Washington, D.C. to get things under control. The carjacking situation, he used that. And I know it's hard to predict the future, Mark, but you can imagine the administration using this as a justification for something.
I must admit, I'm at a loss to guess as to what happens next. But Kirk,
not acknowledging the fact that they are guilty of radicalizing people. This is what we've been seeing unfold before our eyes. They have radicalized people who sit at home all day on social media, who have, watched these networks, MSNBC. They have them on rotation. And they know that. And they have been conditioning people to demonize anybody who dares to question the mainstream narrative. Anybody who calls out their hypocrisy. They dehumanize and demonize.
It was one of those bitches on The View. After President Trump went up on the RNC stage at the convention and he had the bandage on his ear, he had just gotten shot. Kai Trump, his granddaughter, stood up there and talked about her grandfather. And what The View said was, I didn't like it because it humanizes him.
And I know his grandchild was up on the thing, and they're trying to humanize him and change your idea about who this guy is. Don't fall for that.
Trump, you're talking about. Yeah. Talking about Trump.
These people don't want anyone to remember that we are human. And this is the end result of that. They don't want you to be humanized. They want you to be demonized. Because if you're demonized, what comes next is obvious. And what comes next is justified in their mind. That is why they are doing what they are doing. That is why you hear the rhetoric that you heard both before Charlie Kirk was killed. Did he deserve to die because he had a different opinion? Do those children deserve to grow up without a father because he had a different opinion? His beautiful wife has to navigate this alone because he had a different opinion? Is that what the left is reduced to? I hope Van Jones sees this picture of Charlie. I hope his words haunt him forever.
And that's exactly what they did to Charlie. And now he's gone. And instead of questioning their rhetoric, the part that they had to play, they continue to deflect, showing no compassion. In fact, let's be honest, many of them are probably happy about it. Because we are seeing people celebrate this, literally celebrating it. The death of a father, the death of a husband, they're celebrating it before our very eyes. Unashamedly. You know they love to virtue signal? Well, now they're proudly wearing their evilness as a badge of honor. They're proud to be displaying this behavior.
Feel bad that a bad person is now gone. I won't. You guys care so much. You guys care so much about freedom of speech. So again, here's mine. I do not fucking feel bad for him. And honestly, if it happens to more people like him, I'll be cheering. I'll be happy.
And people are saying, of course, that it's worse than we thought in this country. It's worse than we thought. The mental health crisis, which oddly enough, they're using as an excuse to downplay what that monster did to Irina Zarotska. They're downplaying it and calling it mental health. People who have come out quite rightly saying that this person should have been locked up. That monster should have been locked up and should never have had the chance to do what he did to this woman. He should never have had the chance. People who are saying that are being accused of claiming that everybody who has mental health issues should just be locked up. This is the deflection and the gaslighting that we have to endure from the mainstream liberal media.
Vice President J.D. Vance pointed to former North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper on X, writing this: law enforcement arrested this thug 14 times. It wasn't law enforcement that failed. It was weak politicians like you who kept letting him out of prison. CNN's Abby Phillips pushed back on that notion that Brown was simply let out of prison. Take a listen.
I'm just saying he did actually serve time for the violent offenses that he committed.
But he was a career criminal, a repeat offender who was let back onto our streets despite a really bad criminal record that suggests he should have been locked away for life because he was threatening the public. He was a menace to society.
He should have been locked away for life for what now?
He should have schizophrenia.
Locked up for schizophrenia didn't sit well with some of the more liberal voices on that panel. Here's more of that exchange.
There's thousands and thousands of people in America, more than, tens, hundreds of thousands who have been diagnosed with schizophrenia that are walking around and that are leading fairly normal lives because they are under treatment.
A lot of people
so
who are mentally
going
ill
to lock up everybody with schizophrenia for life?
He demonstrated violent proclivities repeatedly.
You said he should be locked away for life for schizophrenia. People shouldn't be locked away for mental illness. They should be treated for it.
In an institution. Yes.
For life?
Listening to Ana Navarro makes me feel psychotic, so I understand why people are losing their minds.
There were images of this older white man being arrested. That's not the suspect, and the suspect is still at large. But at least there's some good news in that police are closing in on this person, and apparently now they have a photo. So the FBI released this photo of the person of interest in the Charlie Kirk assassination. If you have any tips, call 1-800, call FBI. And now Stephen Crowder. He is reporting, based on information he has received from his tip line. This is not something that has been released to from the mainstream media or the police. So Stephen Crowder, he has basically revealed that the suspect is showing evidence of believing in trans ideology. Yeah. And that was evident in the very bullets that were used in the assassination. Now, this could turn out to be unsubstantiated, but I think it's important that the evidence that comes through, is revealed to everybody. So this is what Stephen said on X. On September 10, 2025, at approximately 12:24 p.m., conservative political influencer Charlie Kirk was shot and killed at the Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. Mr. Kirk was speaking at the university as part of the American Comeback Tour. Multiple SLC 1 and 3 agents responded immediately. The suspect fired one shot from an elevated position on a rooftop in an adjacent building on the campus, and surveillance video shows the suspect jumping off and fleeing the area on foot. ATF and other law enforcement located an older model imported Mauser 30 .06 caliber bolt-action rifle wrapped in a towel in a wooded area near the campus. The location of the firearm appears to match the suspect's route of travel. The spent cartridge was still chambered, in addition to 3 unspent rounds at the top fed magazine. All cartridges have engraved wording on them, now listen very carefully, expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. An emergency trace has been submitted, and ATF SLC is working leads generated by the trace. The firearm and ammunition have been taken by the FBI for DNA analysis and fingerprint impressions upon completion of forensics. The firearm will be disassembled for additional importer information. Multiple people of interest have been contacted or detained because of eyewitness testimony and review of video footage. The primary suspect is yet to be identified. ATF is assisting the investigation with multiple other federal, state, and local partners, and the case is co-ed by the FBI and Utah SBI. So Crowder received an email from an officer. The email included a screenshot from what appears to be an internal message describing a weapon and cartridges located by the ATF and other law enforcement near the scene of the Charlie Kirk shooting at Utah Valley State University. This is what is being alleged according to this report. People were saying that the person seemed very organized up there on the roof. So we shall see what comes out of this. Obviously, we're praying that this person is caught as soon as possible. It's a very, very dark time that we're living in indeed. Very, very dark times. This man wasn't violent. He never called for violence. He never made light of violence. He was against violence. But those who love to virtue signal, act like they're holier than thou, self-righteous, are the ones who perpetrate violence and are still calling for violence, not learning anything from this tragedy. They are the makers of their own destruction. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think down below. And please take care of yourselves. And God willing, I will see you in the next video.